Good afternoon. So we have been discussing the patterns of criminal justice and approaches to criminal justice over the last couple of decades, and how these strategies, such as three strikes, you're out, and really harsh penalties like that, have become popularized to politicians. And one of the more noteworthy marking points, turning points, if you will, in this debate was during the 1988 presidential election, when George Herbert Walker Bush, the father, first Bush, that held the highest office, he ran this ad, very brief ad, that kind of like illustrates the dialogue that was going on at the time. So check this out for just a few moments, and we'll get into the lecture shortly.
Dukakis not only opposes the death penalty, he allowed first Bush and Dukakis on crime. Bush supports the death penalty for first-degree murderers. Dukakis not only opposes the death penalty, he allowed first-degree murderers to have weekend passes from prison. One was Willie Horton, who murdered a boy in a robbery, stabbing him 19 times. Despite a life sentence, Horton received 10 weekend passes from prison. Horton fled, kidnapped a young couple, stabbing the man and repeatedly raping his girlfriend. Weekend prison passes. Dukakis on crime.
One second here. So Willie Horton again in the 1988 election, and we talked about how over the last couple of decades the pattern has been to get tough on crime. We talked about the reform period. We talked about looking at the medicalization, of crime control, if you will, where we looked at it as a social problem that needed to be treated. And in the 1960s, late 1960s onward, we had the get tough on crime policy that really got into motion under President Reagan, and then under George Herbert Walker Bush, and then also under President Clinton, who defeated Bush in '92. With this in mind, again, we talked about how the Clintons got a lot of flack off of the crime bill, the 1994 crime bill, and they should have. Really was very harsh on the Black community in particular. A lot of these small crimes that we talked about, people were being punished very harshly for. However, we can't look at that in isolation. Democrats like Michael Dukakis and later Bill Clinton, pretty much all Democrats, were painted as being weak on crime by giving people like Willie Horton weekend passes, where again, if you had a good time, if you went into prison and you didn't bother anybody, you didn't do anything wrong, and you were showing some ability to reform, then you would get a chance to participate back, gradually in society. So in Massachusetts, they had a program where they could go on a weekend furlough, would have to come back to prison, and Willie Horton did some awful things during his furlough. And while again, this is like, an awful situation and highly lamentable, and something that, obviously Mr. Horton should be punished very harshly for doing. A lot of times we look at the extreme cases to make a certain point. So again, you can debate the merits about weekend passes, but because Willie Horton acted out in this way, suggests that we should treat all criminals as harshly as possible. I think that that's also a difficult leap to make. Because again, we need to look at what happens throughout this system, and particularly what happens after sentencing. Keep in mind, there are many types of sentences that individuals can get for breaking the law. Most of them do not involve going to jail or prison. As always, make sure that you're reading along with taking the notes, and as you write this stuff down, make sure that you're really absorbing what you're reading in and really making sense of it, and making sense of it within the larger context of the wider discussion. I'll leave this up for you all for a couple of moments. Again, this kind of information isn't anything that I will test you on. There's certainly things that you can use within your paper, and it's just data to give you a wider context of the discussion that we've been having. But you will not be expected to know those particular numbers. Just again, for wider context in the discussion. As we talked about, though, one of the things that you do want to look at very critically are the racial disparities within this increasing prison population. Because again, when you hear get tough on crime and, you know, let's lock everybody up, that sounds great. And oftentimes the perception is that the people who get locked up is a reflection of, like, you know, the proportion of the crimes that are being committed. But this is an overwhelmingly majority white country. Just by the very nature of that, it would be pretty, it would be a stretch to imagine that most crimes will be committed by, Black people in this country, given, again, the disparities in population. Yet, the disparities of who actually go to jail are very different. We also see that when the crimes are similar, we talked about last time that, the differences between crack and powder cocaine sentencing, but whether it be burglary, whether it be like assault, carrying a concealed weapon, again, there are many crimes that, people go to jail for. Rape and murder and really violent crimes are very rare. But even for crimes like that, Black people and Latinos get longer sentences than whites do. Again, none of this is like, opinion or, anecdotal. This is decades of patterns of research. Unfortunately, we even see, like, this with skin tone, where, if you're the more, amongst Black people, light-skinned folks get lighter sentences and less jail time in general than people with darker skin. So the darker the skin, on average, the longer the sentence. And again, one of the things, hopefully, obviously you're taking general psychology and maybe some other psychology class. Much of this is in our subconscious, much like our own internal, color preferences and things of that nature within the Black community. So it's not like necessarily judges are going up there deliberately going up there trying to create and foster these disparities. But some of these things are just built into our system in ways that I would imagine you've been exposed to in some of the other classes. And again, like, the victim matters. If you're a Black or Latino person and you commit a crime against somebody of the same race, you have a much better chance of not being prosecuted and sentenced if compared to if you rob or assault a white victim. That's it for chapter 2. Next time we'll look at prisoners' rights. We'll begin this next week. As always, make sure that you see your syllabus and see where you should be at in the material. You all should be a little bit ahead of me at all times. As always, this lecture is being recorded and will be posted online. Check it out if you have, in the previous lectures, if you have need any refreshers on some of the information. Keep in mind that, your writing assignment is going to be coming up due in a few weeks here. I highly recommend that you submit a rough draft and even schedule some time during office hours where we can talk about the paper. And also, of course, like I said, really stay up with the reading. The quizzes in this class are pop quizzes, so they can come up at any time. And then the midterm is going to be here in a blink. So make sure you stay up to speed with the reading. The notes alone would not allow you to be successful in this class. If there are things that you don't understand with the reading, let me know, and I got you. You all have a wonderful day.